Welcome back to Boundaries and Banter. We are your hosts, Taryn and Michaela. Today, we welcome back our very special guest, Bernadine Freed, a licensed therapist. And we're going to be discussing narcissism, which is a word that has completely taken over social media. So, Bernie, let's jump right into it. How would you define narcissism? How would you define it?
Well, it's funny that it's only just now getting on social media. I'm a little bit surprised by the fact that as a therapist, we've been working with it for, 20 some odd years. First of all, I think number one, it's very important to think of narcissism on a spectrum. That there's the extreme narcissist, which is more like the malignant narcissist, which is the grandiosity, the dominant, superiority. They're entitled to the world. And then there's other elements of narcissism that are more in the field of what we would call traits. So there are several different forms of narcissism, like the malignant, as I said, which is very extreme and pretty obvious to identify. You can pretty well feel when somebody is on that level, the very dominating superiority, all of that.
Can you, just to back up, can you tell us what that looks like? Give us an example of the archetype.
So a malignant narcissist is somebody that has massive superiority. They deserve the best seat in the house. They are entitled to rolling out the red carpet at all times. When they enter a room, they tend to dominate with a level of superiority that borders on complete obnoxiousness.
They're the royal one.
They are.
They're the loudest in the room.
They are. And they're dominating any and all of everything. And when the focus isn't on them, they get very dysregulated. And so it's kind of all eyes on me at all times. And they are the know-it-all of all things. And they tend to be pretty critical and biting to the people around them because they need to maintain that I am the most important person in the room kind of
interesting
seniority.
Then you said there's someone that another type of narcissist would be someone who has the traits, right? So would you classify that person, if they have a few narcissistic traits, are they a narcissist or they just, need to work on parts of themselves? That question makes sense.
That's a really good question because, almost like autism is on a spectrum, not dissimilar to narcissism being on a spectrum. So the traits are maybe there's characteristics. Would you define them as a narcissist? Yeah, depending on how many traits there are. But you can sort of see they're called more of the vulnerable narcissist or what we would probably term a covert narcissist. So they're kind of a little undercover with it, but when it comes out, it's pretty significant.
How would it come out?
It would come out as anger in a very abrupt way, incredibly opinionated and belittling. In sometimes nuanced ways, why are you wearing that right now? Just out of nowhere. Or you'll be at a dinner table in just a normal conversation, and then all of a sudden they'll bring up potentially a fight that you two had the night before.
So to make themselves always look better.
Correct.
Okay.
But it's not as palpable as it is with somebody that's malignant, where you're just it's all about them at all times. It tends to be a little bit sharky, a little under the surface, comes out and bites.
For a malignant narcissist, would it be fair to say, on the very extreme end of the spectrum, you have kind of a psychopath kind of thing?
Basically, they're incredibly hard to treat because if you think of the actual injury itself, it usually happens between birth to 3 years old. So it's often even pre-verbal. That sense of, I cannot go to my caregiver. So then what they do is they become this overinflated, grandiose self. And it really stems from incredibly early abandonment, which is where it's usually rooted when it's at that really high level of what's considered in like what the DSM or something.
So you become a narcissist based on how you were raised?
Yes.
Okay. Does a person that is a narcissist, do they know?
Good question. It really depends on the person. Oftentimes in the extreme levels, they usually don't seek therapy. These are not people that you see, in their weekly psychotherapy. They usually have to really be falling apart and hitting bottom in some pretty significant ways to seek outside help. Their world is usually crashing into a million pieces.
Is there a level of charisma that I would imagine that malignant narcissists have, right? I feel like there's a level of charisma that makes people around them love them or admire them, or maybe not necessarily notice just how narcissistic they are.
Definitely, because the name of the game is domination and power, right? These are like cult leaders. These are like people that need to be seen at such a core level that they do tend to be incredibly charismatic, incredibly like over the top funny, over the top center of attention. They do tend to draw people in, especially empaths, people that are more like sensitive and really are feeling like, wow, this person is amazing, and because of their traumas, they tend to often be prey for the malignant narcissist.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
They usually go together.
So are narcissists, like, if someone had to go to them and say, call them out on their shit, are they the victim?
I wouldn't, because they'll outrun you.
Okay, so just don't ever approach. Stay away from a narcissist. Is the bottom line.
I mean, if you can, don't take the bait. The last thing you want to do if somebody is in fact a narcissist is to try and call them on it, because they will wear you down in ways that are unimaginable. Then for the long haul.
So for our viewers, like, let's say you have a person in your life that you feel is unhealthy or you feel is a narcissist. What are some very obvious traits that you could identify that, maybe you're onto something?
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to also jump in here because there are so many different types of narcissism, I feel, and it is so frequently used that maybe it's easier that we don't identify the type of narcissist for our viewers and we just talk about traits.
You mean traits or tactics? Because there's both.
I guess both.
Both. So that, because let's say you have someone that has a total victimization attitude, and that is a very strong component of who they are. And it does make them a narcissist. But you also have a different type of narcissist who is the grandiose, malignant narcissist. It comes out in a different way. So let's maybe take the titles away and talk about different traits.
Like, how do you identify a narcissist?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and again, with social media, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
They talk about love bombing, right? So the amount of this absolute, all eyes on me, where they literally, you're the most special person on the planet. I couldn't live without you. You are my person forever and ever. I mean, some narcissists even get to that point where they'll threaten, like if they're feeling unsafe, I can't live my life without you. So there's this massive amount of intensity, which is called what we know as love bombing. That's one of their like famed tactics. Other forms of like actual traits for narcissists are gaslighting, devaluation, and then finally discarding. So oftentimes what will happen is after the love bombing, there's this whole period of like gaslighting you where you actually start to question like your own reality. Like they may tell you, oh, you said this to me. I mean, literally flat lie. And the person, you just get thrown off of your own balance, your axis. Mm-hmm. And so it creates this fear, and threat. So back to, do you ever confront the narcissist and tell them they're a narcissist? More times than not, they'll start gaslighting you and make you feel like you're going to be discarded and abandoned. And then, oftentimes the person starts thinking, but I love him or her and I don't want that. So they really push on that pressure point with people that are empaths.
Interesting.
Like you continuing to confront me and hold a mirror up to me, you're going to lose me. Kind of this threat of I'm going to abandon you because you're wrong and I'm the victim in this situation.
Right. Not only I'm going to abandon you, but you're crazy. Like you can wave around the evidence to them. Like, I'm sorry, I see that you've been texting this other person the whole time. And they literally can turn that story right around and say, oh, great. So I'm in a tribunal. Like you're going to start like grilling me. And it goes sideways very quickly because then you start to think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, so it's like, for example, if you have a friend and you say, I know that you spoke badly about me. And then they say, oh, so you're saying I'm a bad friend now. Like that.
They distort your reality.
So they're the victim. So someone that also makes himself a victim, right?
Right.
Okay.
They turn into the victim and then go back at you with you're treating me badly.
Like you're the perpetrator. And now this is the new sense of reality I'm going to give you. And I'm going to drill it down so much that it's going to make you question your own reality.
Exactly. That's pretty spot on.
There you go. Our new therapist, Taryn Jacobson.
We've done the podcast enough.
Mic drop.
Legit, you are.
Why do you think people are drawn to narcissists and how do they react to boundaries? Two very different questions.
Okay, wait, so who's reacting to the boundary? The person?
The narcissist.
The narcissist.
So why are we attracted to them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they are so oftentimes in control of the room. Like they're holding what is actually a false power because they've been like the golden child. All eyes on me. They really know how to command attention. And in our society, that has a lot of value. And to be fair, often narcissists are very successful in a capitalist society. I mean, most of the billionaires tend to be on the narcissistic spectrum, if not the full board.
Well, because they think that they're fantastic. There's no sense of like, there might be deeply wounded, but like there's this sense of like, I'm fantastic. And
Look what I've done.
You can get really far in life with that mentality.
100% because they're so entitled.
Right.
And then all they have to do is get you to buy in to how incredible they are and how much money they're going to make you. And all you have to do is invest in their company. Next thing you know. And by the way, they win at the game of capitalism often, which is, as we can even see in our current environment, the people at the so-called top are all billionaires. And mostly a lot of them tend to be on the narcissistic, either full-blown thing or on the spectrum with the traits.
So setting a boundary with a narcissist is just, I mean, we did an episode on boundaries with you.
Yes.
So how would at what point does one just walk away and say,
Well, the number one is don't take the bait. That's the bottom line. You don't take the bait of a narcissist ever.
How do you know what the bait is? Like, how do you know you're being baited?
Because, and this is where even I think when I spoke on with you guys before, we have to trust our gut. We have to trust our gut. Because as you're starting to feel the dysregulation in your system, it's really easy for the narcissist to get you to react to them, which at a certain point, once you do that, you're in the trap.
Mm-hmm. So for example, how I would imagine it looks like is you're telling someone what they've done and how they've hurt you. they're changing the narrative to make themselves look like the victim. And now they're trying to make you look like the perpetrator and changing the reality. And the response might be, I trust my sense of reality. That my reality is my truth. You're not going to convince me otherwise. Maybe that's an example of, no matter what you say, you're not going to infiltrate my reality.
It's true. And beyond that, what the gray rock, I'm sure you know what that is, or maybe not. If not, gray rocking, which think of a gray rock. I mean, could you find anything more neutral? Just having a very measured, like, okay, kind of response, like, I hear ya, you want them to be dysregulated, not you. You need them to be the one that's off their game, not you. Because as soon as you get sucked into the discussion, it'll never be ending, and it's always dominating.
So it's either you're like maintaining your sense of reality or gray rocking them, kind of not giving them anything to pick up, right? So just saying
Drop
things.
The ball.
Yeah, saying things like, oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Great. We're great. We're doing well. And just not giving them anything to pick up or no contact. But is there any other kind of boundary that works with a narcissistic people?
Indifference.
Yeah.
Like agree to disagree?
Like you just don't give a shit.
Yeah, you're just indifferent.
You just don't care.
No.
Whatever they say.
Whatever. Like, next. Like, go for it. Because they get to be the, quote, kind of crazy person and unraveling. What the narcissist feeds on is our dysregulated nervous systems. When I'm dysregulated, I'm prey. I've lost the game. And the other part of it is they will take it all the way to the end.
They won't stop.
They will not. And take you with them.
What does a narcissistic parent look like?
Well, oftentimes the narcissistic parent has what we call, depending on how many kids, they often view their children as an extension of them. So it's all about being performative, the kid getting straight A's, them being the golden child. They need to even dress the way the parents think they should, otherwise they'll shame them. There is just a lot based around performative elements. Equally interesting is there's a style where the children tend to be scapegoated, especially if you have siblings. There's one that's not doing the bidding for the narcissist and isn't mirroring them perfectly. And then that kid is talked about really poorly and seen as kind of the scapegoat of the family. I hope that.
So when you say an extension of the parent, you mean like it's like a lot of, for me, it brings up a lot of owing, like your child owes you, right?
Well, it's not just owing. It's like you are a mini me and you needed to get in there and do the spelling bee the way I would have.
So put grades, college, everything aside. You need to do what I did because that's the right way.
Well, it goes beyond that because as kids mature, rightfully so, you want them to be individuated, to be their own person. Whereas in narcissistic relationships where the parent is the narcissist, you have this deep, deep enmeshment where there is this like melded into one, so that even like emotionally, for example, if the child is sad, the mother often will say, oh, you're making mommy sad.
Right. Like they put their emotional well-being on their children.
They're emotionally regulating themselves with their child.
With their child.
But the child needs to mirror back precisely them.
Right.
That's so
there's
sad.
Or whatever they need.
Exactly. And so when the child has other feelings, which is actually really healthy, they get shamed for it. And then there's a shutting down and there's a massive amounts of shame. So then you often get a mini narcissist on your hands.
Interesting. So like, let's say it's really important to keep a family together to a narcissistic parent.
Yes.
And like one sibling hurts the other sibling's feelings, right? And then that sibling whose feelings were hurt expresses hurt.
Right.
Then maybe the narcissistic parent would say, but that is going to disrupt our family, which matters more to me. And that's what matters to me. So like you have to mirror just being okay.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And of course, the kid that's crying like might end up a drug addict because, you know, they feel alone, they feel shunned, they don't feel a part of that system. That's like the scapegoated child.
Right.
That ends up just because they're having a, quote, different feeling than the parent or one that's seen as unacceptable or not okay. They then are literally alone and in shame.
So in the long run, it really damages the child because it makes them lose all confidence. They feel like they can't feel the way that they want to feel because they need to feel how their parent wants them to feel.
100%.
Well,
and it's like the shaming of that and witnessing the parent, you know, only feeding the golden child like that creates, you know, pathology and aloneness. And again, this is like the total groundwork roots to create addiction, where the kid just wants to numb out, act out, not be a part of, all of that kind of stuff.
For narcissists that are married, this is a really weird question, but I'm curious.
Go for it.
For them to have a successful marriage, would their partner also be a narcissist?
So wait, explain.
Like, would it be like two narcissists?
oh, that's so interesting.
Would it be like, you know, let's say here's Bob and he's a narcissist and he really wants to get married to Pam. Okay. Is Pam also a narcissist, or can they have a successful marriage with, you know, Bob being the only narcissist in the relationship?
I see it all the time. I mean, narcissists together are the power couple often.
Yeah.
They're marrying each other perfectly. They do it the way they both need to. And they're like so enmeshed often.
But isn't there a power struggle between Bob and Pam?
That seems like really destructive.
Yeah.
It seems like the end of
Especially to
Mr.
the
and Mrs.
kids.
Smith.
Yeah.
Oh no, it is, because they're like hypercritical, really intense, super judgmental, often like talking poorly almost to each other, but they come right back at it because if you've got two narcissists together, they've created a little narcissistic kingdom together and they're mirroring one another. They kind of work off of each other. It's diabolical.
It's really sick.
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking about a narcissist with a non-narcissist, I imagine you're talking about what would be maybe an abusive relationship.
Often. Yeah. And then again, you know, there's always the negotiation of your emotions. How much room is there for me? Is it okay for me to say this?
Right.
Oh, he or she will get mad at me if I do X, Y, Z. So I'm going to just like need to keep that to myself.
Need to keep the peace.
So like a successful marriage doesn't mean a long marriage, right? So like if you're the victim of narcissistic abuse and you're not leaving, it's not because you're in a successful long marriage. It's because you're a victim of abuse and it's hard to leave that dynamic.
Well, you've been silenced.
Yeah.
And more times than not, there's usually a really intense trauma history with the person that stays in a long-term narcissistic relationship. They're really just in a reenactment often, whether they were maybe the golden child in a narcissistic relationship themselves or coming from trauma in general.
Are there two, like, I know, so just going back to different types of narcissism, are certain narcissistic people more compatible with certain other narcissistic people? Do you know what I'm saying? Like the grandiose narcissist and the communal narcissist.
Right.
I feel like they would work.
They would? Oh, yeah.
Tell us why.
You have to find your narcissist. If you're a narcissist, find your partner.
It depends on, like, are these traits? Is this a full-blown thing? But often they can really be compatible.
Right. You have like the grandiose narcissist who has to be the loudest in the room, has to be the most loved. And then you have the communal narcissist who is the do-gooder for the optics of it.
Exactly.
And that really benefits one another. They serve each other a purpose.
They do. They do. And they, they shine in their mind.
Yeah.
And kind of sadly to me, like on a social level, and because I work so much like with trauma and with families where you're like, okay, you went to Harvard, you went to Stanford, you guys are perfect. Why is your kid just a complete drug addict that can't leave his room? And it's often because they're in la la land. It's the narcissist that is living this pseudo life of pretend mode. And this child is so unseen and often not able to do the bidding.
So the abandonment piece that you were talking about.
Exactly.
But let's say a kid grows up and they're seemingly fine. And so a narcissist would use that in their arsenal to be like, well, no, like my kid grew up fine. You know what I'm saying? Like how my narcissist didn't do
therefore
anything
we've done nothing wrong.
They look at them, they're successful. How do the effects show where they're not obvious?
Well, it's crazy, right? Because so often when I get the person in front of me, it could be any version of this, the person will share with me, I had an incredible childhood. Like everything was fine. Mm-hmm. Like my parents were great. I'm like, okay, you're smoking fentanyl. I'm sorry. Like this doesn't, like what happened? Yeah. Right? And it's not them because they are, again, kind of almost victimized by the parental relationship. And so what ends up happening is there's this like profound protective instinct for them to not share this part because it's so much about the performative elements that you're not allowed to crack it.
Right. So like maybe you are successful and you're doing well in business, but like deep down you feel like these extreme feelings of shame or inability to connect to your partner or whatever. And that's all the trauma that you don't want to show to the world.
And that is, people build their entire lives doing that.
Wow.
And it's oftentimes only when everything crashes that they have to look at it. I mean, and then it's also really interesting in the parental dynamic because let's just say it might be an adult child that's seeking help. And then that child, or if it's adult child, for example, becomes this pathologized, stigmatized, identified patient. So then they become the reason that their family is all fucked up. Excuse my language. But you know what I mean? And they end up having to be this very pathologized, stigmatized human. And it's really hard to get under that. And so sad.
How do you tell someone that you're creating boundaries with them when they are a narcissist and you've exhausted every other option? Do you think that it's necessary to say something?
Or is it that implied boundary that you talked to us about on our boundary episode?
Right. I would avoid it because
so interesting.
To be explicit and setting a boundary, you're going to be gaslit. You're going to get potentially just so much blowback and it's so exhausting that it's really, really hard to do. I think back to like the actual boundary is checking your gut and being like, this feels really unsafe to me and I am not okay right now. I need to either walk away right now. I need to fully gray rock and see if that works. Like you need to pull out all the stops, but it's all internal because as soon as you start to make that explicit, then you're potentially subject to a ton of being gaslit or being in a fight.
Or being sucked back in.
True.
Well, easily.
But what if it's not to get their response? Like you've made it resolute in your mind. I don't care what their response is. This is just me needing to communicate this for myself so that I know I have been clear.
I mean, fair. You can do that, but you're not going to get the response.
Right.
You're going to get an attack.
And so if you're okay with that and that's not the purpose of it, then it's fine, you'd say.
Right. But it's like you're back in the ring again. It's like you want to leave the casino before you've like lost everything. Because, you know, you'll go in for like 15 more rounds, which is why we have to really protect our nervous systems when you're around somebody like that.
So basically, sometimes closure isn't the answer for this.
Well, what is closure though?
I mean, maybe sometimes someone would want to let someone know, listen, this is what my boundary is. Mm-hmm. And they know going in, it's not going to be respected. They know going in, you're going to get gaslit or sucked back in or shamed or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they want to do it because they want closure.
Right.
But maybe maybe you need to have peace within yourself and forget about the closure, because going back in is going to do more harm than even get you that closure that you need. Does that make sense?
It's 100%. But it's funny, right? Being a therapist, as long as I have, I always tell people, I'm like, you do not always get to have closure. Sorry. That's like kind of a fake term.
Closure. Yeah. You make closure within yourself. You're never going to get it from somebody else. You're never going to get what you want from someone else. You're putting an expectation on somebody else to fulfill some sort of need within yourself.
Yeah, because the person that you want closure from is not going to say, oh, I understand.
I see.
I get it.
All of a sudden, no.
And then you both are going to leave in peace because you want closure. Like,
yeah,
that sounds great,
and
you know,
see you later.
But like when you're dealing with somebody who has this type of disorder, that's a fantasy that you may have, that there's some peaceful solution, which is in itself just more bait to get you back in there.
So like a big step is just accepting the reality of who this person is. And that can be really hard.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
And particularly because narcissists are so incredibly charming.
Yeah.
And, you know, like if, say, you're dating a narcissist, you've had the most amazing magical dates ever. You've had just the most incredible times. Let's forget the fact that he didn't go to your graduation or meet your, you know, people that just promoted you at the party or met your friends. You know, there's this idea that you really want to believe that this person is going to show up for you. And so it creates a massive amount of internal confusion when you're involved with a narcissist for all of those reasons.
So how do you cope with, you know, a narcissist in your life? Or would you just say walk away?
Well, it depends on the degrees, right? And to what extent you need to engage with this person. Like, who are they in your life? Like if you're married and you have like 3 kids, you know, it's a little more complicated. Mm-hmm. You know, I think you really have to turn inward and ask yourself those deeper questions, which is, I know he's going to go to that party and be highly obnoxious and he's going to disregard me the entire time and flirt with my best friend. You know, you have to be okay with that, because that's just what you're actually dealing with. Mm-hmm. Or just mean, biting comments, things like that.
Okay, so not dying on every hill.
So when it becomes detrimental to you, when it becomes detrimental to your nervous system, do you think that's a point in which you walk away?
Yes.
What does that look like, it being detrimental to your nervous system? What does it do to the nervous system?
Well, name it. You've got panic attacks, insomnia, like crying jags, like all of your friends are telling you, if you tell me that story one more time, like if you keep talking to me about this guy, I'm not listening. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody's pretty much fed up with it. And there's so much aloneness with it. And there is often like just a feeling of complete despair. At which point, this is what I was going to talk about earlier, is there's so much grief that comes with it. Because you really bought into the fantasy that you had this amazing person.
Human, yeah. Makes sense.
That's really sad.
That's really, really sad.
It is really sad. But, oftentimes it's so sad that the person will seek therapy, in which case they come out of what I think of as almost like coming out of a cult type dynamic, where they're like, oh, there's a me that exists outside of this story I've been telling myself or sold that I bought into. Oh, I actually have a self. And they actually start doing the work, in which case it's incredibly healing and exciting. But on the way there, it's very devastating.
You can lose your sense of self when you're in a relationship with a narcissist very easily.
Not even can. More times than not, you do.
You will.
Or you'll sacrifice it. It's like you bring it to the altar all the time, every day.
Wow. And so if it's a kid, like let's say we're not talking about a relationship, if it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, if it's a kid and you lose your sense of self, you never really knew your sense of self because you've only grown up losing your sense of self, right? You never even got to develop
it.
it.
That's very damaging.
Well, you're performative.
Right. So you never even got to develop your sense of self,
well, yeah,
which I imagine is so disorienting when you finally break that versus being in a relationship, having a sense of self, losing it, having to regain it back, being in a familial dynamic when you never even got to build it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I actually don't know who I am.
It's really interesting. I've literally talked to people that have grown up with narcissistic parents or a narcissistic dynamic. One of my favorite questions is I'll ask them what their favorite color is. And they literally will not know.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's an element of indecisiveness because you didn't get to decide.
Someone made all the decisions for you.
Exactly. And they don't know. Like,
wow, that's crazy.
What is it that's really important to you right now? They will go into panic, not know. And it creates also this really deep dependency on other, which is also they are prey potentially for getting into a narcissistic relationship themselves. Because that particular kid, often the golden child in a narcissistic dynamic, if they don't become a narcissist themselves, they end up just losing their sense of who they are from the beginning.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it's really, really toxic, which is why, this topic of narcissism, and we could see it so much in our culture and even on social media, it's everywhere.
Do you think it's overused though?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. When somebody's like really successful, really proud of their accomplishments, feeling really good and self-aware and all that, that sometimes is mistaken as somebody, oh, you're narcissistic.
Yeah.
And it's not the case all the time.
Yeah. And I imagine that can really diminish someone's accomplishments. So in those scenarios, it should be, in all scenarios, but in those scenarios, it should be used carefully, more sparingly, because you also don't want to stifle someone from sharing their accomplishments or being proud of themselves, or, that's really important to instill in children too.
No question. So I think it's, like sometimes when somebody is accomplishing a lot and feeling really confident about it and winning maybe for the first time, and they have like this very exaggerated, expression of, look at me over here, can be mistaken. And again, back to your point, is it being overused? Yes. Is it everywhere? Yeah, that too. So, you have to be able to be discerning about that.
So I think the key points here are you can't change someone's personality, but you can just control how you react and your boundaries. And you have to trust your gut and set those boundaries or walk away if you are dealing with someone that is this disruptive to your nervous system or to your life.
Exactly. And also, because often with narcissism, you're kind of being held captive by them, and you feel like you're almost like their publicist, like you have to kind of sell them to everybody because, you're sort of like helping them, like people not see them as bad or whatever, as this negative, obnoxious person. And so once you give that role up, it gives you an opportunity to turn inward in ways that you haven't been able to.
So like radical acceptance, right? Like it's radical acceptance of who this person is, because that person has been, tasked with maintaining the emotional regulation and state of the narcissist. So they have to maintain this image for them to everybody else. But the minute that they're like, oh, I don't have to do this and I can accept who this person is.
Exactly.
And I have control.
And I have control over it.
Yeah.
Of whether or not this person's in my life. And it's just this radical acceptance, and it's really hard to get there. But
it is, because often with the radical acceptance comes tremendous grief.
Right.
Correct.
Because you have to like let go of the version of this person that you thought they were.
The fantasy.
Or like a connection that feels unnatural to let go of. Like if it's a family thing or a spouse, it just feels so unnatural to you. Because it isn't easy.
It is not. And I mean, it sounds like really kind of cool to be radically accepting. But at the end of the day, what you're actually doing is you're giving up on the relationship by having to just accept the person as they are, which is easier said than done.
Yeah.
Especially if you're invested or you've put a lot of time and energy into it.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have our would you rathers, but I do have one. So I guess we could go into that. I have one would you rather question in my head. It's gonna be a tough one. Okay. So Bernie, I have one would you rather question for you. Would you rather be the child of narcissistic parents or be married to a narcissist?
Oh.
Ooh.
I think I'd rather be married to one.
Why?
Because the problem is, if you're a child, it's the ocean you swim in. And then you have all this developmental like damage that goes with having a narcissistic parent.
So less damage.
Yeah. And harder to navigate as an adult and growing into being an adult and having a parent. It's really, really challenging versus like you wake up and you're like, I am with a narcissist and I need to get out.
Would you rather be the child of a narcissist or married to someone who's the child of a narcissist?
Neither are good. But on that same note, I'd rather be married to the child of a narcissist because see, here's the bottom line. You want your childhood to have been decent and stable, right? Because once you have child narcissistic abuse or trauma, then you're going to have a way harder time dealing with it because you've then got what we call complex PTSD, which is developmental trauma and makes it way harder to get out of. Yeah. So you're way better to do it as an adult than as
a child.
A child, yeah. You kind of are screwed when you're the child.
Okay. Well, that was a loaded episode. I think our viewers are going to enjoy that one.
Well, I'm so happy you came.
Thank you, Bernie.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming back. We love having you on.
Yeah, our favorite. We love you, Bernie.
We love you guys.
We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.